Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to September's edition of LinkedIn Audio Events. My name is Didier Lemiere. I'm the founder and director of Fixon Media Group. We're a video production company down here in beautiful Melbourne, Victoria. And today's topic is the psychology of video storytelling. How do you influence consumer behavior in this modern world of marketing? We talk about demographics a lot, needing to know the age, the gender, the location, the budget that your customers have. But understanding those psychographics that they hold is equally, if not even more important, I would argue. So it's a really great topic to be talking about this morning. And there's a number of key talking points that we'll be discussing throughout. So first and foremost, we'll be looking at the key changes in consumer behavior over the past decades. So to understand where things are at now, I always believe it's important to understand where things have been and where things have come over time. So we'll be looking at the changes in the ages of marketing over the past few decades, and then we'll be looking at where things are at now in the modern age of marketing. From there, we'll be looking at the mindset of your customers when they're consuming video content, because they're going to have a few different mindsets when looking at short form content, when they're looking at long form content, and they also have a different frame of mind when they're on different platforms. So understanding those mindsets and understanding why your customer is in a different mindset at different times is critical to being able to put out really important and informative content for them. Then we'll be looking at how you can actually communicate your business's message without being pushy. And you want to do this to be able to influence their consumer behavior, because if you don't do it in this manner, if you don't do it without being pushy, if you do it like it has been previously, well, this is where we have those issues, and this is where you can't influence consumer behavior. So that's those few key talking points for this morning. Marty, welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts later on if you want to chime in at any time, because this is a topic that's definitely right up your alley, given your psychology background. So yeah, if at any time you do want to join in, there's a little hand button down the bottom. Just tap that and I'll bring you up onto the stage, and you're more than welcome to add a comment or two there. So let's get straight into it, looking at the changes in consumer behavior over the past decades. So as I mentioned, to understand where things are at now, it's really, really important to understand where things have gone over time. And over the past decade in particular, there's been a really big shift in how consumers are interacting with businesses. So let's have a look at where things have gone previously. So if we go really, really, really far back, let's go back to the Mad Men age of marketing, as it's called. And this was a period from the 1900s up until around about the 1980s, thereabouts. And this is known as the Mad Men age of marketing. So this is a time where businesses, they were communicating to their customers via mediums such as print, radio, and there would have been a lot of street activations as well, where people representing a business were on the corner of a street and they're pitching something to people as they walk by. Now, a lot of this is one-way communication. This is a business speaking to a customer, and there's not much coming back in the other direction. So the feedback loop is very limited in that sense. A business will share their message to a mass, thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people in some instances, in the hope that a minority of people would then jump on board with that message and translate into a customer. So the ROI on that, as you can imagine, is pretty low. It's not very effective. It's purely a numbers game. The more people that the business would market to, the more customers they would gain. And this was a great strategy back then, but as we know now, things have changed completely for the better, and this is no longer the best way to go about it. The downsides of the approach is that lack of cut through and that lack of targeting. And this is where the digital age of marketing came into play in around about the late 1900s, when the internet started to come through, email, and then of course social media in the 2000s as well. So the idea behind the digital age of marketing is that businesses can still take on this idea of targeting the masses in the hope that a minority would jump on board. But instead of doing it to anyone and everyone that would listen, well, now they can do it at the masses, but do it to a very targeted audience. You can target an individual person these days with ads, which is it's crazy to see how far things have come. So now, instead of a business putting a message out to the masses, hundreds, thousands, millions of people, and hoping for the best. Well, now they can do that exact same thing, put it out to the hundreds of thousands of people, but hundreds of thousands of people of their ideal demographic. And more importantly, their ideal psychographic, their ideal customer. And this is the key differentiation between the madman age of marketing and the digital age of marketing. It's that really targeted campaigning that was available to businesses. Now, as we know, this was incredibly effective. We've seen it as ourselves as customers, and probably seen it as business people as well. It's such an effective method. And this is the sole reason why thousands, you could probably even argue millions of businesses across the world have been able to succeed. And it's also the sole reason that many businesses have failed, because they couldn't adopt to this new method of marketing. And keep that in mind when we're about to talk about the new age of marketing, the immersion age of marketing, because we'll see the same trend follow in through here. The businesses that can adopt the immersion age of marketing to its best practices as possible, well, they're the ones that are going to succeed. And the ones that are going to fail, they're going to get left behind, are the ones that aren't able to adapt to the new age of marketing. So I want you to consider your actions as a customer of many, many different businesses. How annoyed do you get with the constant barrage of advertisements? There's a little react button down the bottom there. Put a little thumbs up or something if you want. Do you get annoyed with all the advertisements that get sent your way on a daily basis? You do, yeah. I'm the exact same. I can't stand it. You go on Instagram and there's an ad. You go on Spotify, there's an ad. Television, streaming services, websites, emails. It just goes on and on and on. Ads follow us everywhere we go. And I think I might have just told you this stat when we spoke recently. But 50 to 400 ads on average we see every day, which is a crazy amount of advertisements. And for the most part, we don't even recognize that we're seeing that many because we just simply don't pay attention to them anymore. Good morning, Samar. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you again. We don't pay attention to the 50 to 400 ads we see every day. Now, I call this that we've become immune to advertisements. It's like this idea that we've built up the antibodies to all the marketing over the years. We just don't pay attention to it. It doesn't affect us anymore. We've become heavily targeted by ads for so long in this digital age of marketing. Well, now it's become the point where we're sick and tired of seeing them all the time. Morning, Pavel. Good to see you jump in. Thank you. So this is where we're at now. This is where the newest and the current age of marketing comes into play, the immersion age of marketing. Compare what we just spoke about then, the madman age of marketing, the digital age of marketing. All one-way communication. Businesses talking to customers, nothing coming back in return. The immersion age of marketing, on the other hand, this is where two-way communication comes into play. Business speaks to customer speaks to business. It goes both ways. It goes away from the idea of push-based marketing that we've seen previously, where we're forcing a message down the throat of a customer, and instead, we're focusing on building genuine relationships with our customers, forging genuine connection, and attracting customers in this way. So that's where things are at currently, the immersion age of marketing. You can see now just how important it is to build those strong relationships, because think about it in a different perspective. A business talking to a customer or pitching an idea through an advertisement, whatever it is, there's got to be a pretty strong relationship for that person to take on something. If you go up to a random person in the street and you say, hey, do this, they're not going to probably take it on board. But if you do that exact same practice, but you do it to a friend of yours, well, it's pretty likely that your friend's going to take the action that you want them to take because you've got that relationship. So we have to think about business and marketing in that same context. If we build the relationships with our customers to the point where they're friends, for want of a better word. Obviously, it's very tough. If you've got millions of customers, you can't be friends with all of them, but you want to aim for that type of relationship anyway. If you can do that as opposed to pushing out a generalized message in a highly targeted manner to a large group of people, well, which one's going to win at the end of the day? Definitely the former, building those relationships. So that's where things are at now. Now that we've understood where things are at now, where they have been previously, let's have a look at the mindset of our customers when consuming video content. Because this is really important to understand. There's not one frame of mind when it comes to consuming content. It's different for short form content, it's different for long form content, and it's different depending on what platform that content is being consumed on. So I'm going to touch on both degrees there, the types of content and the platforms the content are on. I'm going to start with the type of content and have a look at the difference in psychological mindset between those different pieces of content. And Marty, if at any time, as I mentioned before, if you'd like to jump on at any time here, I think this would be a great part of today's chat for you to jump in on as well, given your background in psychology too. So short form content, what's the mindset a customer is in when consuming short form content? Well, it's very, very simple. They're wanting to binge various pieces of content in the shortest period of time to satisfy a need to distract themselves from what they are doing currently. It's all about getting a quick hit of dopamine every time. Every time they scroll, another hit of dopamine, another hit of dopamine, another hit of dopamine. So as a result, when consuming short form content, your customers are probably not paying a heap of attention to what they're actually seeing. Because once they get that hit, it's on to the next video, and then on to the next one after that. So you could pretty safely say that most likely in a week's time, they probably don't remember what they've actually seen. Now think about yourselves when you're consuming content. You might see a piece of content today, and you may remember it tomorrow because you showed it to a friend or to a family member, but in a week's time, chances are you won't remember it. And this is the exact same that you can assume in your customers. They probably won't remember what they've seen in a week's time in terms of the specific content, in terms of what they actually saw in the content. So this begs the question then, does that mean that as a business, you shouldn't be posting short form content because you're not going to be able to capture the attention of your customers? Yeah, that's a pretty fair question to ask. If they're not paying attention, then why bother putting the content out there in the first place? The answer to that question is no. Well, you shouldn't stop putting the content out there, because you can attract attention by constantly showing up and being in their feeds. Whilst they may not remember the information that they've seen in a specific post that you put out on a daily basis or every second day or whatever the pattern is, they will remember seeing you. They will remember seeing your brand or you as an individual in their feed, no matter what the platform is. And for brand awareness, this is a big tick of the box. This is a huge win. If you can achieve brand awareness just by being memorable because you show up on a daily basis or every second day, that's a big, big win for you and your business. So whilst short form content, your customers are in this mindset where they just wanted to scroll through and get hits of dopamine every time, and they may not remember what they're seeing, they will remember seeing your brand there if you're showing up on a constant basis. And that's really, really important to remember. If you bring it back to the relationship side of things, I always think of short form content as being a tool to keep things in your relationship with your customers hot. You know, keep you front of mind. You keep things hot in there, keeps things ticking over. It's a really great tool for that, just to keep it ticking over all the time. So let's contrast that now from short form content. Let's look at the long form content mindset. There's a very big difference in the terms of how a customer acts when consuming long form content. And again, think about what your actions are and your mindset is when you're consuming long form content. When we're consuming long form content, typically it's because we're wanting to be educated or we're wanting to be entertained. One or the other. There's very few times it's any different reason for that. So think about going on to YouTube as an example, probably the best place for a long form piece of content. If you're going to watch a 15-minute video on YouTube, that isn't a short film or a movie of some sort. If you're watching a 15-minute video by a business for the sake of entertainment, is that likely? Probably not. You're probably on there to learn something. So if you wanted to learn about whatever's being shared, you wanted to learn that information, well, you're not going to be there going from piece to piece to piece to piece to piece. you're pretty likely to consume it in full or thereabouts, 75%, something like that. So this mindset with long form content is to be educated or to be entertained, depending on what side of the spectrum is there. It's very different to short form content, as we said before, where they're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, looking to give themselves a distraction. They're actually wanting to get something tangible out of a long form piece of content. They're wanting to learn, or they're wanting to be entertained. Entertainment can come through laughter or some sort of emotion coming out of that individual. We spoke about before how in a week's time with short form content, it's pretty unlikely that your customer will remember what they heard or what they saw. But in a week's time, what are the chances they'll remember the long form piece that they watched for the sake of education? It's pretty highly likely. And the reason for that is because they've become educated from it. They learn something from it. So from my very, very basic knowledge of the human brain, and this is probably a great part for you, Marty, here, to correct me if I'm wrong, please. This will create a neural pathway in the brain that says, hey, if you need to learn XYZ again, well, go back to this video that you just saw because you got education from it. Or, on the flip side of things, go to this brand whose video you watched to learn further about what it is that you just learned. Does that make a little bit of sense? Pavel, Simone, and Marty, does that make sense? It creates a little pathway in your brain that says, hey, if you want to learn something again, well, go back to this video or go back to this brand that you learned it from. Yeah, awesome. Thumbs up and a love heart. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. So you can kind of see now the differentiation between short form content mindset and long form content mindset. Very, very different. And we have to understand that when putting content out, because if we treat both as the same, well, it just simply won't work for us as a business. The activity of putting that piece out for people to watch is going to be in vain. It's not going to do any decent for us. So now that we've spoken about the types of content, well, let's have a look at the platforms, because platforms have different mindsets as well. Even though content is both, even though platforms are made up of short and long form content, they have different mindsets within that. So I'm going to be talking about the 5 main platforms, and I'm also going to talk about your website as well as additional to that. So if we look at the likes of Instagram and TikTok, which I've included as kind of the same category because they're very, very similar, these 2 platforms are short form dominant. So you can assume that your customers that are on there, well, they're going to be looking for them short hits of dopamine. Bang, 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 bang. Scroll, scroll, scroll. So you want to be looking at Instagram and TikTok as being not so much a tool to educate your customers. By all means you can. It definitely can work. But for the most part, you want to look at Instagram and TikTok as being a tool for brand awareness. Just show up consistently. Whatever that periodic consistency is, whether that be daily, every second day, or once a week even, whatever it is, just show up on a consistent basis and build that brand awareness. And probably lean towards being a little bit more on the entertaining side of things to really deliver that hit of dopamine. Now, by all means, people do go onto Instagram and TikTok to learn. No, I definitely do that from time to time. As much as I love going on there for the sake of entertainment and to distract myself from whatever I'm doing in the moment, I do go on there from time to time to learn about something as well, whether that be in sport or whether that be in business as examples. But treat it as a brand awareness platform. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. If we look at YouTube, well, here's a platform that was for such an extended period of time, so dominant in the long form section. And now they've taken on board short form content in the past years as well, since everything's been moving in that direction. So here, you've got to have a mix of different content strategies. Continue what you've been doing on Instagram and TikTok with your short form content to deliver them short hits of dopamine on YouTube for your customers. But then also lean towards a little bit of that education side of things with some longer form pieces where you can talk about your area of expertise and dive into individual topics within that. So you want to have a mix there, education and entertainment, both sides of the spectrum there. And LinkedIn is very, very similar. Both got short and long form content now. They've just released a new short form video feed on LinkedIn, which is very exciting. But we're typically going to be looking at education here. There's very, very few pieces of entertainment that you would see on the other platforms on LinkedIn. But a tip here for LinkedIn is that you want to be looking at videos that are far less produced than what you get on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So on those platforms, it's going to be all about getting their attention and keeping their attention. So you're going to have lots of different graphics popping up all the time. You're going to have captions that are in your face and wanting to grab that attention. On LinkedIn, what we find is that the less produced videos, the ones that are very simple, maybe it's just a camera and the person talking to camera, or you might have a few small informational graphics, like a lower third or something like that, very, very simple. They tend to do a lot better than those ones that are highly produced and in your face. And again, this just goes back to the platform mindset. Whilst LinkedIn is educational, so we're looking at towards maybe slightly longer form content and the mindset that comes with that, on LinkedIn, people are just wanting to learn. They're wanting to be educated. They want to be in the know. So lean on that. Create content that is going to suit people and suit your customers on LinkedIn in that sense. If we look towards Facebook now, well, this is a platform that is very similar, I think, these days to the likes of LinkedIn and to the likes of YouTube. They've taken on board Reels, so short form video content, but they're still very much highly ingrained in the practices of the past 10 to 15 years. Facebook is obviously a very strong advertising platform for businesses, and that kind of talks to that age of digital marketing that we were talking about earlier. So is it set up for the latest age of marketing, the modern age of marketing, the immersion age of marketing? Well, it probably is, but it definitely leans towards that digital age and highly targeted content. So I think for Facebook, the mindset of a customer on Facebook would be largely to interact. And I think if we lean on the idea of two-way communication as being a characteristic of the modern age of marketing, if we treat Facebook as a tool to interact with customers, talk with customers in the comments or through content, and receive feedback the other direction from them, I think that's probably where we get the most use and the most benefit out of the platform, if that makes a little bit of sense, guys. And then finally, your website. And this is a little bit different. Just wanted to touch on it because it's always a very good topic to talk about in terms of websites. Here it's all about education. Just provide as much value up front as you possibly can. Because your potential customers, they pop onto your website and they're gone incredibly quickly if you don't provide them any sort of value within the opening 15 to 20 seconds. So if you can have a video of some sort on your homepage above the fold, so they don't have to scroll further down your homepage before they see a video. If you can have one above the fold on your website that says, it could be very basic, it could be a thing of, this is us, this is what we do, this is how we help you, and here's some testimonials. Incredibly basic. That's probably a great starting point for most businesses, and you can dive deeper from there. But just providing that educational value straight up front is a great tool, because people, when they come to your website, they're wanting to be informed, they want to be in the know, they want to know straight away what it is your business can do for them and how you can help them. Plain and simple, black and white, easy. So that's really important to understand. So now that we've understood the mindset of our customers on different platforms and when consuming different types of content, now we can get into talking about how do we actually influence consumer behavior? Because we know what their mindsets are like now. We know how they're thinking when they're looking at content. So let's have a look now. How do we actually communicate our brand's message without being pushy to influence consumer behavior? And this is where understanding your customer is really, really important. We always talk about demographics of customers: age, sex, location, the budget that they can spend, on and on and on, etc., etc. But this is all surface level. Demographics are just surface level. To make a difference, a real difference, we need to understand their psychographics. And this goes further than just understanding their mindset when on a platform or consuming content. We need to understand what are the emotions that they feel that really draw them to us as a business. And this is where the 4 pillars of brand films come into play. We're talking about here the psychology of video storytelling. And the 4 pillars of brand films, they're not just a great asset for good storytelling through video, just marketing in general, they're a great tool for that, just to understand your customer a lot deeper. So the first pillar of a brand film, we start off with understanding what it is your brand really sells. And again, we don't stay surface level here. It's really, really important. You've got to go really, really deep. So I'm going to use the example of Qantas, because I'm going to speak about their film in just a little bit to bring this all together for you. Let's look at Qantas, an airline. They fly people from point A to point B. That's very, very surface level of what they sell. If we go a little bit deeper than that, what are they actually selling? Well, they're selling the ability to connect people no matter the distance, no matter the circumstance, no matter where they are in the world. Very, very simple again, but it goes a lot deeper than staying on that surface level of, well, they fly someone from point A to point B. And just going that little bit deeper enables us to get so much more detail out of what a potential customer may be feeling. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So if we look at that actual product of what they sell, what are the possible impacts of this? Well, let's just say one example could be they enable a grandparent to meet their new grandkids for the first time because they've been able to connect a family from over in Europe and fly them to Australia. Now, that's one example of an impact. Another one could be a son is able to celebrate the 60th birthday of their parent after being separated during COVID. They can fly them from Tokyo, fly them to Melbourne for the party. That's another possible impact. And there's probably another hundred of thousands of impacts, possibly, that we can derive from the actual product of Qantas. Let's just focus on one, though. Let's use the example of that son stuck in Tokyo because of COVID, because of lockdowns, because of border closures, and he's finally able to come and celebrate the 60th birthday of his mother. What are the emotions associated with this? And this is the third pillar of a brand film, the associated emotions of the impact. Here we're looking at how does the customer feel before they experience the impact, and then how do they feel after they experience the impact. Because if we can nail those two sides of the equation, how they feel before and how they feel after, well, then we can create a film that speaks exactly to these emotions. And therefore, when viewing the film, a potential customer will feel those emotions, and then they become a lot more engaged with our business going forward. So while the son is stuck from the mother and the son are both probably feeling very sad, very lonely. They're probably a bit angry, perhaps, for being in the situation that they're in. So these are all emotions that we can capture in a film and translate that to a potential customer who's viewing it. let's flip it. How are they going to feel afterwards? Well, when they see each other again, they're going to be ecstatic, they're going to be happy, there's going to be a lot of joy in the air, smiles everywhere. That's not an emotion, but you can picture that, smiles everywhere. These are emotions that we can capture in a film, once again, and translate that to a potential customer. That's the third pillar of a brand film, the associated emotions. And now that we've got those emotions, what we can do from there is create a relatable situation through a video, tell a story about it for our customers to engage with. And the idea behind a relatable situation is that we are able to hook a customer in on not an aggressive marketing tactic, as we've seen previously in the digital age of marketing and the madman age of marketing, but we can actually hook them in on a story because it's relatable. It's a relatable situation. The customer, the potential customer, can picture themselves being in this situation. And that's what makes it relatable. And that's what hooks them in. That's what engages them. So through the relatable story, what can we communicate as a business? Well, first and foremost, we can communicate what it is that we sell, what it is your business sells. That can be communicated. You can then communicate the impact of this. Again, we're only going to focus on one because we want to have a pure message. If we have a few different impacts that we're focusing on, this is where things become a bit cloudy, a bit confusing, and it loses all effectiveness. So just focus on one of those impacts. Then we can talk about those associated emotions of that impact. And then finally, we can bring in the fourth pillar of brand films, which is mixing in your core values and beliefs as a business. And that enhances that connection. We'll touch on why in just a moment. So using that conscious example, the son stuck from his mother and they finally get together after COVID. A brand film was actually created about this. It was released by Qantas back in March or April of 2023, I believe. And to make it real plain and simple, COVID's happened. This is the timeline. COVID has happened. The son is stuck over in Tokyo. Excuse me. And the mother is stuck down in Melbourne. And she's moving out of the family home. Her birthday's coming up. And she's sending all these videos to the son about how this is his old room. This is his old furniture. Some photos. And they're talking over FaceTime. It's very, very emotional. And you've got those emotions coming through in the film there. You've got the tears, the sadness. You can see a little bit of the anger on their faces that they've been separated for so long. All of this is being translated to us as a viewer, and we can feel it. Again, because it's relatable. We can imagine ourselves possibly being in a situation where we're separated from a loved one for an extended period of time. As the film draws on, we see that the preparations are underway for her birthday, and the son is trying to find a way back to Melbourne to come and see her and celebrate with her. To cut a long story short, he manages to get a flight, which, surprise, surprise, happens to be through Qantas. And he comes down to Melbourne. He sees her at the birthday party. And a family member presents her with a boarding pass. And she's like, oh, what's this? Because it's got his name on it and all that. And then he taps her on the shoulder. She turns around and there's smiles everywhere. There's hugs. Everyone's happy. Everyone's joyful, ecstatic. Great scenes to be a part of. And again, we can feel those emotions. We can relate to that situation of finally being back together with a loved one. So we can see here how all of those aspects of a great brand film have been included in here. We've understood what it is exactly that Qantas sells, being able to connect people together, no matter the circumstance, no matter the distance, no matter where they are in the world. We can see the impact of this in that the son is able to celebrate the birthday with his mother, and we can see the associated emotions with this. The anger, the sadness beforehand, and then afterwards the joy and the happiness. And then we have that fourth pillar of brand films, which I touched on before, the core values and beliefs of Qantas. How would that have been communicated within this film? Well, simply, very simple. Everything's simple when it comes to influencing consumer behavior. We can simply see that they value connection. They value relationships. They value families. And they value bringing people together for that purpose. And the idea behind including emotions and core values and beliefs of a business within a film or within marketing in general is to draw connection between brand and customer. Start to do that two-way communication. Because if I put out a core value of mine to my potential customer base and my current customers, and then they turn around and they say, hey, I also have the same core value. I also have the same core belief. Well, we're starting to communicate now. And good morning, Haley, as well. Good to see you here too. Thank you. If I put out my core value and I say, this is what I believe in, this is what I value, my customer comes back and says, hey, I also value this. Well, there's communication happening there. We're going back and forth and say, hey, we agree with each other. This is great. We love it. This is a great relationship to be part of. I believe in this, is what the customer says in return. I believe in what you are doing going forward. And on social media, this might look like a two-way communication through a comment or sharing their post to their story with their friends. But the idea is still the same. You're bringing that two-way communication. And we touched on before how the older ages of marketing were all about one-way communication between business to customer. Now it's going back and forth. Now the customer is in a position where they can give that feedback. And this can be done through having that two-way communication by providing what it is that we believe in. And if you've built that relationship with a customer because they're engaging in a two-way conversation, because they also believe in the same things that you believe, this is how you can then influence their behavior. This is how you influence customer behavior. Because as I said earlier, if I go to a random person on the street and I say, hey, can you do XYZ for me? They're not going to do it because they don't know me. They don't have a relationship with me. But if I put it out to my customers, and it doesn't matter if I've got 4 customers or if I've got 4,000 customers, if I put it out to them and say, hey, this is what I believe in. Do you feel the same way? Yes, you do. Awesome. Now we're starting to build a little bit of a connection there, a little bit of a relationship. When I turn around and present them with a brand film, just as Qantas have done, and I say, hey, this is what I want you to do. I'm Qantas. I want you to go on a flight with me. Okay, awesome. Well, can they do it now? Well, they can because they believe in the value of connection. They value family. That's why it's so important. And now we can start to influence that consumer behavior. Is that making sense, Powell and Haley? Is that making a bit of sense? By building those relationships, that's how we're able to influence customer behavior. Really, really important. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Powell. Appreciate the thumbs up there. And you too, Haley. Thank you. So that's it for today, guys. I know, Haley, you just sent a DM there saying you thought it was a 10:30 start. Don't worry, there is a recording of this, so it will go up onto Spotify probably by tomorrow morning, and I'll send you a link for that. But I hope this has been insightful for you, Paul. I know you've been here from the start, so thank you for your support. Understanding the consumer behavior is one thing, and understanding their mindset when consuming content is one thing. But being able to use that to our advantage as a business in marketing, whether it be video or over print or advertisements, whatever it is, being able to use that to build relationships with our customers and then translating that into being able to influence their customer behavior, so critical, so important. So thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate your support in listening. The next event will be held on the Tuesday, 8th of October at 10 a.m. here on LinkedIn again. And the topic for next month is value-based marketing. So we're touching on that last aspect of the brand films there, including your core values and beliefs. We're going to unlock that a little bit further and see how we can use our values as a brand to connect with clients on a much deeper level. So I'm going to dive a little bit further on this topic. I kind of stayed a little bit surface level on it today. I'm going to dive a lot deeper next month, just focusing on that last section there, your brand's core values. So thank you, Hayley Tyrell, for jumping on. And of course, we had Marty and Samar on earlier as well. So thanks to them too. There will be a recording published later on today, hopefully up by tomorrow morning. So I'll distribute the links around for that. Until next month, thank you for your time and enjoy sunny Melbourne. Finally, spring is here, the sunshine is out. So get out there and enjoy it. Thank you, guys.